Hello, folks, and welcome yet again to another Friday night. Another Friday night of rain. I've just walked across from home to the Tattle dinner, absolutely pouring it down again. Unbelievable, but hey, there's still fish to be caught and there's still fun to be had. This week, I got to bring up before I get into the main part of the show. I must bring up a couple of things. I noticed that there's lots to say about cormorants, and I read in the Angling Times and I read in various avenues that the match anglers reckon now that it's got out of hand, and to be honest, I have to say, really. I've been, it ain't about me. I have been saying this, and along with a couple of others that have had the nerve to say it and had the balls to say it, that these cormorants have been eating our fish for many, many, many years, ripping places apart, unbelievably so. The numbers are now totally, totally, totally out of control. And I just hope that, now, I just can't believe that we've had to wait this long before, there's going to be something done about it. Now they're going to, sort of try and prove how much damage they're doing. And I have to say, obviously I'm not important enough. I don't know enough. I don't say it the right way. Perhaps it's because I got a black country accent instead of a posh southern accent. I don't know that they don't take any notice. And after many, 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 many years, thousands of pounds of fish been eaten, millions of pounds probably. Now they're going to do something about it, or going to try to do something about it. Talk about shutting the stable door when the horse is bolted. Absolutely unbelievable. The other one that I was astounded listening to news and whatever, all over the place is I see photos of otters actually being killed on the roads, and the people that love otters, that's including me, by the way, that love otters, are worried why so many are being run over. Well, I'm afraid that's obvious why they're getting run over. And they're getting run over because there's so many of them now. And the poor things of having to travel far and wide to find their food, whether it be in a fish pond in a garden, whether it be a cartwater, whether it be a river, whether it be a stream, whether it be a brook. They're just spreading all over this again. There's so many that are actually on the roads now being killed as they search for food. Unbelievable. It's quite ironic, actually, that the people that have put them down, put them out there, saving otters that have been injured, and instead of nature taking its course, bringing them in and making a hospital for them, etc., etc., and making sure that none hardly die, they actually created a situation where now they're killing them by the very fact that they're spreading that much. They're ending up on our roads. Can you imagine otters on the road? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What we're doing to nature is unbelievable. Paul Holloway saw 2 dead otters on the road near Cleveland last year. When I came back, they were both gone. I don't know what would have took them. Would a fox took them, or would humans have got them up and just to hide them? I don't know, Paul. I just know. And you're a man of nature. You're out there. All I can say is, there's too many. And it's causing a problem. It's causing a problem not only for us, it's causing a problem for them. John Hopton, I remember seeing upwards of 50 cormorants working across Chew over 20 years ago. John, I got news for you, mate. It ain't 50 cormorants now at Chew. It's thousands. Thousands. The number is unbelievable. It's like a carpet of cormorants. It's like a carpet of cormorants. And just unbelievable. Where we will go with these predation, I just do not know. It's unbelievable. Anyway, this week I was out there, and I've spent more time actually looking at rods. You know, fishing for decent fish has always been the same. You know, you go through ups and downs, and not downs. You just have, sometimes you're catching, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you go through a little spell, and I've gone through a little spell. But my life, I've ended up in the last few weeks, with 14 perch over 3 and a number over 2 and a number singles. It's been tremendous, and the sport's died on me. What it's died for, I don't know. Whether it's for the pressure I put on them on a small number of perch, I don't know. But they certainly seem to have disappeared, and I shan't be fishing for them now, probably till next winter, really. I'm moving on, and I spent most of my time looking at looking at a rod and looking at a floated chew and not having many takes. We had 6 takes. I had 2, and John Chester, my companion, had 4. We both had doubles. John had the best we said about 16, something like that. We didn't weigh it. It was the most beautiful fish, and there was a lot of people saying, what a fish. And it really is. I mean, that's going to be a big one. That'll be 20 next year, probably 22, 23, the way they grow there, and then probably the year after 30, if nothing kills it or whatever. It is just a beautiful. I mean, look at the dorsal. Look at how the dorsal's marked, and it's absolutely unbelievable. Steve Greenway, you don't get cormorants where we're going, Desi. Yeah, we're going to Scotland Sunday for a few days, and let's see what we can do up there. I'm really looking forward to it. I see Steve was asking, am I excited? Yeah, I really am excited. I went to the B&M and got me some pot noodles and my soup and whatever for on the boat. To keep the cold out as we sit under the cuddy. I really look forward to it, Steve. I'm so excited. It's going to be a great time, that's for sure. And on the evening, you can have your Stella and I'll have my rum. And again, we'll talk fishing, no doubt. Absolutely looking forward to it, mate. And that's it. I've enjoyed the period of the perch, and I enjoyed that last session. Although I didn't have a perch, I really genuinely enjoyed it, and I genuinely had a great time with John Chester. I always do. I'm an ex-pipe fitter, and John's an ex-surgeon, so you can see how we are poles apart job-wise. But the lovely thing about fishing, it just brings you together. It doesn't matter what you do for a job. It doesn't matter how much money you got or whatever. If you're an angler, a true angler like John and myself, are true anglers, then you come together and you talk. You're on the same wavelength. I don't even look at John as an ex-surgeon or a clever buff. I tell you, all that John is to me is a bloody good fisherman, and he really is a bloody good fisherman. So there you go. Okay. So the Angling Times. Let's get to the Angling Times. Actually, the Angling Times did bring up the centre one there. It's about the cormorants, and they're gonna, the one thing that they did a paragraph there and said, it's no good shouting and bawling on social media. Well, if the likes of me hadn't have done any bawling, it would have been worse. I think the shouting and bawling that the likes of myself have done on Facebook and Instagram, well, Facebook in the social media has got this perhaps and show them, because surely the match anglers and what have seen this for years like me, but they've never said anything. All of a sudden it's come about this but the likes of myself have been shouting from the right there the top of the mountains and shouting about predation, and almost give up about shouting about it. But I really do wish them well, and but I really do find it quite funny that the match anglers, perhaps because they've come away from the commercials so much and they're now fishing quite a few wilder waters like reservoirs, and that they suddenly notice that their fish are being eaten and they want to do something about it. But hey, let's hope it's not too late. The other one there, boost your baits for extra bites. Over the years, it's really funny. A lot of anglers and a lot of poor anglers fight flavours. They don't make any difference. They don't make any difference on predator baits. They don't make any difference on carp baits. They don't make any difference. Good old bread, good old worm, good old maggot. You don't need nothing else, and you don't need flavours. Well, to a certain degree, I would say that yes, there are a lot of flavours out there, a lot too many flavours that probably don't work that much. But let me tell you something now. If you dismiss flavours completely, then, you're in the wrong, because there are some fantastic flavours. There are some fantastic additives. There are some fantastic attractants that work. And a bit of research into it, a bit of trial and error, then you will catch more fish using them. That's for sure. And yes, of course, there's always going to be the person that throws in, well, my biggest catch was on a piece of luncheon meat and whatever, and I've never flavoured mine, and I've never flavoured it. The type of person that talks like that, I don't take any notice of. I really don't, because it's a known fact that flavours and there you boost your baits with extra for extra bites, and it does. I've proved it no end of time. I've proved it to myself, because I'm the same. I don't waste my money on stuff that doesn't work, but there is stuff out there that really, really, really works, and it's up to you to listen to the best of anglers. You've got to say, are they saying it because they're sponsored by that company, or are they actually using it, or what? I mean, I've known flavours and baits, and the last few years I've tried them and I can't catch on them. I just can't get a bite on them. But some say it's the best thing they've ever used. I don't know. Either I suddenly become a bad angler when I get these baits. I don't know. But it's worth looking at. Don't dismiss flavours. Really don't. And that's for sure. Okay. The photos there. There's two carp. There's one a full-scale mirror, and then there's another a linear. It's irrelevant who caught them. The two young lads that caught them. But the thing, that I thought, crikey, those are fantastic carp. I know people call them mud pigs and they're ugly, fat-bellied. Well, I think carp are a beautiful fish, and some are more beautiful than others. And there are two. A good linear like that one is a really, really a sight for sore eyes. It really is. And the other one there is really an old type English looking fish. It's an absolute beauty. Either of those fish I'd have loved to have caught, and that's for sure. There's a lot of people coming here on. They use vanilla and they use aniseed and whatever. Now, all of those flavours and all that. All I can say is, if it gives you confidence, then it's a winner. It really is a winner. And the other thing is, I'm a firm believer. I always have been. Some people have got bad hands. They really have got bad hands. I don't know what it is. I remember Peter Stone writing an article, and he said he took a chap fishing on I think it was a back stream of the Thames somewhere, and they were fishing bread. He was fishing bread flake, and this chap he was putting this chap into known pegs. Conditions were brilliant. It was just a matter of just chucking in. He was going to catch job. He chucked in a few times, not a bite. Chucked in, not a bite. He said, what the hell's it? He said, I tell you what, here we go. And he put a piece of bread on, and Peter put it on himself for the chap. The chap chucked it in. He had a bite straight away. Then they did let this chap put it on again. Now, you can either believe in this or not. I personally believe in nothing. Some people have got bad hands. Now then, if you got bad hands, then It can't be a bad thing to. I mean, I hate filling my car up on the way fishing. I really do hate to do things like that. All things like that. I really am a strong believer that it can affect your fishing. So if you put aniseed or vanilla or Scopex or something on your hands, I'm a great believer in when you get there, in putting your hands into the mud. Very often I'll do that. Even in cold weather, you can ask people who fish with. I will put my hand into a bit of mud, put it over, and then wash it off, and just gets rid of the human smells that obviously fish pick up on, and they still have the bait. But some people might be that they don't want it. It's the same with dogs. Some people, you could put their hand on a dog and they're sniff and they want to bite, and some people they want to lick or whatever. I think there are certain things. Um, Gary Driver, I've used holy mackerel oil for piking, definitely made a difference. Well, whether it made a difference in at the end of the difference at the end of the end of the day, it's if it's made you confident, that's all that really matters. And if you catch more because you're thinking this is working, then even if it's not, it is working, isn't it? It really is. I'm a great believer in flavors. I'm a great believer in confidence. Once you got confidence, you're catching fish, aren't you? Um, Paul Paul Bradley Paul Bradley says, "What's your favourite flavour?" Rum and Coke. Yeah, probably. And my mate did the same. It was his aftershave. It was his aftershave. Yeah, I mean, and Mark Robinson, nothing worse than diesel on your hands. Yeah, all of these things. I think I always say the difference between a good angler, a brilliant angler and a very average angler is such small percent. It might be 10% or whatever, but the 10% isn't made of 5%, 2.5%, and another 2.5%. What it's made of is 0.0001%, 0.00002%, and all these little things. And this may be what we're just talking about. John Ettle, bread dipped in Batham's bitter. I don't know if you get a take. Probably get a bloody take off you, John, but you wouldn't get a take off of Batham's bitter, yeah. So that's my take on flavours, but that's it. Okay, talking about flavours, talking about attractors, talking about food. Who's next? Let's get on to Ambrose.
How are we doing? Just on a local club lake today. This is on the King's Limbrook down at Snetcham. This is King's Lake. Down here after the bream. Just got a couple of rods out on alarms. Lower to what it normally is, because generally I'm on top of the bank, but it's probably down about 6 foot. So now time for some dinner. And today I've got a couple of sirloin steaks, tin of the usuals, the little new potatoes, which I'm going to strain, dry and half and fry. I've got a couple of slices of bread, a couple of chicken eggs today, no duck eggs, and a small tin of beans. And I'm going to be cooking that with my large Ridge Monkey pan, because they break in half and it's got different sections in one of the halves. And also I've got the Ridge Monkey double gas burners, where these two are joined together and run off one bowl. So what I'll do, I'll get a bit of lard in that pan, we'll get that hot and we'll get them steaks in. Right, I've just put a bit of lard in that pan, and also in this one here, because I might put the potatoes in at the same time as the steaks, so I think cooking time will be about the same. But we're going to get them steaks in first. Those potatoes in as well. The best with these pans is because you've got these, I can do a couple of eggs and my beans in there as well. Right, I'll get these nearly done and we'll get them eggs and beans in. Right, my steaks are getting about done. And potatoes are the same, so I'm just going to try and get a couple of eggs in. For these beans in as well. Right, we'll get them beans and eggs done and we'll get it dished up. Right, we're looking about done. The eggs look done, beans are bubbling away. Steaks are as I like them. I like my steaks well done. So right, just kill the gas and we'll get it dished up. Let's try and fit it on that plate again. Probably overdone it with two sirloins, but there. Have them new potatoes. A couple of more anglers are just coming down here for the roach, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on, because they say there's some nice roach in here. Potatoes. Let's try and get these eggs out now. Beans. Certainly a bit of a cowboy dinner. Couple of slices of bread and butter. And there we go. Sirloin steak, fried potatoes, a couple of eggs and beans. And I'm going to get that out, probably a couple more hours fishing, because it's really nice down here. And get packed away, and yeah, that's it. So once again, thank you very much for watching Tight Lines and Full Bellies. Cheers.
Absolutely superb. Cheers, mate. That was fabulous. A lot of people say, what's Ambrose like in real life? Because I mean, I've seen Ambrose. He comes to the Do every year, and the nice thing about it is he does such a good presentation. He's a natural on the video, but he's actually a real nice bloke. He's that's for sure. He really is a top class bloke, and becoming a regular part of this show. And who'd have thought it? I thought, crikey, how many things can you cook on the bank? Little did I know that we'd got Ambrose. I thought that, it was going to last about a month and then that's the end of it. But, I could, all the ones he's cooked, he can go through them again because, we just like to see him cook. And it because it's on the bank, it's really great, isn't it? Excellent. Okay, talking about another favourite of the group. Is of course this man, and that's Paul Holloway. Paul went down to Bedford. He said to me that I think it was last year, he said he was trying to get down he wanted to get some nice photos of the deer down there, the Chinese water deer, and eventually he did. He went down. I can't remember if he went down last year. I don't think he did, but he went down this year. Sort of Tracy, when the weather gets better, Luke will be back with a few videos. That's great. I know that he's been fishing, but I think when you're in mud and cold and whatever, it's not the ideal to be making videos. And so there you go. That's okay. So this week has just gone. This is obviously Paul Holloway speaking. The weekend just gone, I went across to Bedfordshire to take an overdue look at our rarest deer found in the British Isles. Despite the heavy rain, managed to photograph some for the nature trail. Native to China and Asia, they were kept in private fenced-in collections in the 19th century at Woburn Abbey and Whipsnade Zoo. Escapees and intentional release in the early 20th century saw a population established across Bedfordshire and East Anglia and are spreading into nearby counties at a slower rate than other alien species of deer. And then we've got, but look at the photo, it really does look like a little teddy bear, but a teddy bear with fangs. Look at that, look at those bloody fangs. God. These small deer sit in sizes between a muckjack and a roe deer, characterized by a teddy bear appearance. They have large round ears, black eyes and a small black nose. The coat is thick, reddish brown in summer, turning to a dull grey brown in winter. Although I was surprised by the colour variations with what would appear to be more mature individuals, notably lighter in colour. Unlike most deer, they lack antlers. In their native habitat, they rely on a small profile to hide among the reed beds and tall vegetation, and have no antlers, allows them to easily move and flee through their home ranges with ease. Instead, they have developed tusks. The buck's tusks can protrude well below the bottom jaw and are used for defence and during the rut to fight off competition. The rut takes place between November and January, typically peaking in December. Wow, what a beast. When you see those tusks from the side, it looks absolutely like ferocious, but look at him at the front, he looks really like a little teddy bear. And Nature Trail 3, we've got the does typically have twins or triplets, but can have 6 or more fawns. The fawns are born between May and July and suffer from high mortality rate. The poo is left as clusters of small, glossy, black cylindrical pellets, and the slots prints are 4 to 5 centimetres in length with straight inner edges. To see and spend some time observing these fascinating creatures has been really interesting. They are less easily disturbed than other species of deer and have the habit of wandering out into fields and lying down with just the top of the head remaining visible. They can, from groups in high population areas, but elsewhere are quite solitary. I know that some have been transported into my home county of Shropshire, but have failed to establish, with one confirmed sighting at Walcott Hall near Bishop's Castle many years ago. Well, it's absolutely fabulous information, Paul. And I would think most people on here have probably never heard of a Chinese water deer, never mind seen them. But Mohammed Huzzi's just saying there, what a beautiful animal. And Christine Weyer, I didn't. No, I think that was the answer to he didn't go last year. So Paul's watching and he said no, he didn't. But there's a lot of people coming on there and saying what a beautiful deer, and they really are. John Hopton, great looking deer, taste bloody lovely too. I bet they do. I will return later in the year. Paul's going again, so no doubt we can. Maud Goodman, do they come with prawn crackers? I don't know, but I'm dying to try some, because no doubt people are shooting them. So there's look at the one that in that photo is just down in the grass, isn't it? You know, beautiful, absolutely lovely creature. Thanks, Paul. That's really, really, really good stuff. Again, yet again. Okay, my tip this week, again, my tips are fairly simple. My fishing is simple, but I like to think successful, and I keep it simple. I don't overthink things. You know, lure fishing has become very popular, and jigging and Ned has become very, very popular, and drop shotting has become popular for perch. And I've just put a couple of tips here that are basic mistakes. Just remember, you can only catch what's in front of you. And when I say that, you know, when you see methods for £4 perch and £5 perch and whatever, don't think that because you've read about a method that produces £4 or £5 perch, that you will go out, even if you know, get really, really expert and professional at what you've been told the method. You know, you can't catch a £4 perch if there ain't no £4 perch in the water. I know that sounds obvious, and you're going to say, well, that ain't a tip. Well, let me tell you something now. There's a lot of people that get despondent because they read a method either by myself or you know, supposedly experts tell you what to do. You go and try and do it, but you know, you say, well, my biggest is £2. Well, the chances are, if you're doing it right, the chances are you're doing it right and you've caught one of the biggest fish in there. Not all waters hold £4 perch, that's for certain. So just remember, a bit of groundwork, a bit of, you know, looking into the water as it produced fish, or how many fish have you caught from it, etc., etc., etc. And you know, you'll then get a feel of if there is a big one, if you want a big one at all. But remember, you can only catch what's in front of you. I put the right time of day in the best swims. I've noticed this common with pike fishing as well as perch fishing as well as chub fishing, that when you can fish various pegs, you know areas that produce the better fish. You know, let's say there's 10 pegs, you know, and I don't know, 5 and 6 are the pegs that produce the bigger fish, and there's big fish in there. You might not have had them yet, but you know that it's produced them a couple of times in the past, or whatever. Well, let me tell you something now. At the right time of day, when you know they're feeding, which very often on perch can be around about 1 till 4, 1 till 5 at this time of year, 2 till 5. Sometimes very, very narrow windows, which I'll talk about at the end. But all I can say is just make sure that, you know, you're fishing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. You're fishing right the way through the pegs. But make sure that at the right time of the day, you ain't on peg 10 that's rarely produced any, or peg 1 that's only produced them to 2 or whatever. Make sure you're on the best peg at the best time. That's, you know, that's what you got to make sure you do. You know you're fishing for a good fish. You know you're fishing for you know, the area that's produced good fish. There might be a shoal, you might have only had one of them. You ain't going to get them out of peg 10 or peg 1 when the thing's right. You're going to get them out of peg 5 and 6, which you know the pegs that produce the bigger fish. Make sure you're there at the right time. Fish slow, not spinning speed. Biggest mistake, you know, when I've took guide days, the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they fish too fast. They're reeling too quick. What they're doing is spinning. English anglers, British anglers generally, before this new regime took over, the young lads took over with the you know, the drop shot and the jigs, etc., was you spin it fast, and you get the take. You know, it brings the aggression out of it. No, it isn't. It's just like fly fishing. Some of the slowest figure of eights or the little pulls, little plucks gets, you know, gets the fish rather than, you know, racing. Of course, you know, sort of fast retrieves do work, and you know, you need to every now and try that, because it might be on the day that's when they're taking a fast retrieve. But generally, I would say, you know, a slow retrieve will get more fish, and more importantly, bigger fish, that's for sure. Another mistake is always the most colourful. You can always see someone that comes, if you open a box of lures and the chap has never lure fish before. The one he'll go for is always the red. Always the red, white and red, or white and orange, always the bright colours because, it's bright, they can see it, fish it fast, it's just like a bull. You put in red to a bull and he goes. That is not the case. Very often green or black, well, I've just said green and black. Actually, trout fishing, like the likes of Vivas and Montanas, will produce a lot more fish sometimes than an orange lure. Certainly some of the better fish. So, just be mindful that it ain't just the most colourful. It ain't the fastest thing. That's for sure. Adam said, do a bit of groundwork before sitting there all day for something that ain't there. Exactly. And that is done so many times, Adam. It really is so many times. And then the last of it, short windows photos at the end. If you notice, I got 3 fish there, 3 fish over £3, 3 big fish. And the reason I got them was as soon as I got the first one, I kept it in the net, in the water in front of me, a landing net, and was casting because I knew they were coming on. I knew I had a tap or missed a bite or could feel odd taps, and then bump, I've got another one in the net. I ain't taking no photos. I've got 2 in the net now. Out again. But this is all happening in 15 minutes, half an hour. Bump, got 3. And then let's take a photo because all of a sudden it's died. You can't get a fish. I've gone on lakes in the past, especially small commercials where, there ain't a take on the lake, and then yet, not fishing by stages or reeds or whatever, wherever you cast, as long as it hits the water, you get a bang. It's though the perch are chasing everywhere. They're turned on. It might only be for an half an hour. They just turn on and chase everything everywhere. No matter where you cast, you seem to be having a knock, bump, bump, then another bump, bump, wallop straight over. Make the most of it. That window, if you have a 15-minute window and you've got you got a lovely £3 10-ounce, £3 12-ounce perch, you got it. Oh, let's take a lovely photo. You get it on the match. You set your camera up, click, 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 click. You've missed another 2. You missed another 3. That's for certainty. So, as I say, short windows, photos at the end. That's for sure. Okay. If you stick to some of those 5 tips there, you'll catch more perch. That's for sure. Okay, let's get to the Zero Fit. The Zero Fit prize, which is here, and that is a beautiful photo. Talking about big perch there, Martin Aboni has talked about the difference between a £4 perch and a £2 perch, and there it is. When Walker said that the perch is the biggest fish of all, then there it is. And they are a big fish. It's got a unique shape. It's got that £4. It's got a smallish head, very deep body, longer tail. Beautiful fish. And huge dorsal. Huge dorsal. Absolute fantastic photo of two lovely fish, Martin. And your Zero Fit is on the way. I can only say that I was out there with. I know my mate was starting to feel a bit chilly, John Chester, and I was out in the boat, and it just didn't bother me at all. Since I've had Zero Fit. I am not cold. The only thing I might have is sometimes, in the amount of times I have to do it this winter with the cold weather, is by the time I've walked to the car, I'm so warm that I've had to lift the likes of this off, take my Zero Fit off, throw it in the car, and then put this back on to drive home because I'm so hot. And it really is that effective. It is another league when it comes to a base layer. It really is. So well done, Martin. The one thing's for sure now, you're going to be warm when you're fishing for your perch. Okay, let's get to the next stage, and let's get to our rig man, and he's going to tell us how to tie one of the talking points of everybody in the car world, in it, sort of the Ronnie rig. So let's go to Laney.
Evening folks. Well, it's starting to get maybe a touch milder. Some of the big carp around the country are definitely getting caught, and tonight's rig is what I'd absolutely be sticking out if I knew there was a big carp in the area, and maybe I wanted to leave it out for a while, or I wanted to fish over a lot of bait, and that's the Ronnie rig or spinner rig. And I'll get straight to it and show you what you'll need to tie it.
I'll quickly run you through what you need to make these. Now, first of all, you're going to need some sort of material for your boom. Now, this corded boom stuff is excellent. You can see I've used a little corded crimp there, and it's just the simplest thing. It is just the length of the boom. The reason it's great, you can steam it and reuse it, and it keeps straightening out again. Now, I quite often use these Gemini pre-made fused booms. They are excellent too. They'll last you again and again and again, and you can obviously heat them up with a bit of steam and straighten them out again. Now for a hook, pretty much any pattern of wide gape or curve, or the specific spinner rigs hooks will be great for these. It's one of those rigs that you can pretty much make it with any hook that has a standard type eye. Now you're going to need some shrink wrap, different sizes for different hooks. You're going to need either a quick release swivel in this sort of style, or a spinner swivel in that sort of style, in order to put the hook in. Obviously they come in all different sizes again. You're going to need a micro swivel, and you're going to need a couple of hook stops, some tungsten, some bait floss, your baiting needles, and if you want to make one for the worm rig, these are called bait spears. Okay, so this particular rig, you more put it together than tie it, because essentially all you're doing is putting your hook onto your swivel, such as that. You choose how aggressive you want it to look, and then you just pull down your shrink wrap over the swivel, and either use a lighter, because you can, because there's no line on it yet, or a kettle. Tighten that up and pop on a couple of beads. There we go. A couple of beads and a swivel, and you are done. Now you'll notice I've got two types of shrink wrap. There's this darker stuff, which tends to be the fishing branded stuff. It's very, very stiff. It will sometimes snap on it when you catch a big fish, but if you're after a big fish, you don't really mind. If I'm fishing more of a runs venue, I'll tend to use this much cheaper sort of electrical style shrink wrap. It still works very, very well. You can see on this one here. It just gives a little bit of flexibility. Maybe not as ideal for getting that perfect hook point in, but saves you having to change the rig every fish if you're going to catch a lot during the day. Now, this one here is my most frequently used rig. It's the one I use for naturals. I put a couple of fake worms on here so you can get an idea. Either I'll use 2 pieces of fake corn there for buoyancy, or a little bit of zig foam underneath. Then 2 to 3 worms that I will put through twice using the bait spear on the end there, and then cut them so obviously they're nice and juicy, and that will go out a treat. And I'm just going to have a quick look at these in the tank, and you can see how they react. And here it is in the tank, sitting up as it's supposed to. It does look a lot when you see it from the side, but what you have to remember is you're never going to be seeing it from the side if you're a fish. You're going to be coming in from above, and essentially you're only seeing the bait. The hook's completely hidden, even with a relatively small bait such as this one. And you can see underneath, that's a big hook. And the hookup rates are excellent with it. The other beauty of it is it can be washed around, and it will reset again and again and again and again and again. There's nothing you can do to tangle that up. It can't hook on itself. It will just keep resetting no matter how many times the fish maybe miss it or swipe it with their tails. So that's one of the reasons that I love it. But I'm just going to finish it with a very short video on the rig setup with worms, so you can see how that looks. and the fish that I caught on it on a recent trip.
And here's the rig, ready to go out. I know it looks like a hell of a mouthful, but carp are big fish, and that will catch you some of the biggest carp in the lake.
Look how thick that is. 5611, yeah?
So relative to Phil, that's a big slab.
We should try and lift it.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, mate. You know, can you imagine 30 years ago, 40 years ago? I know a lot of you might not have been alive then, but certainly myself, if someone had showed me that and said that, you know, in those days, carp was supposed to be sort of, you know, unbelievably wary, cautious, intelligent creatures, and you know, to catch them took, you know, you had to know your quarry, and the rig had to be so covered and whatever. Oh, I can remember, like, sort of trying to catch one was almost impossible. And if someone had showed me that was the rig that was going to take it apart, I just wouldn't have believed them. You know, you know, because the amount of ironmongery, the amount of sleeves, the amount of swivels, etc., etc. But they work. You know, I use them myself now. But when I look at them and I think, you know, they ain't that clever, are they? I mean, if I was swimming down looking at that, looking round, I think, you have got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. You know, and then it goes against most fishing, but it makes a great trap. Yeah, I agree, Phil. You know, I'm just saying now that, you know, I just wouldn't have believed it. I remember, I'm of the age, Phil, I remember when first showed the air rig, you know, we were of the ilk that, you know, you got to cover the hook. You got to master the hook. You couldn't let the fish see the hook or you never get a take. Now, all of a sudden, a person showed me the hair rig, and I said, "What? You know what? Look at me. Well, I've got something wrote across my head. You know, the idiot. You know, there's nobody you could get." And there it was. You know, Kevin Maddox and was it Lenny Middleton? They come together with this thing that, you know, I use it all the time. Yeah, you know, Mart. I don't know if Mart. Yeah, probably Mart comes from that era. Hide the hook era. You know, now it's last thing you want is anything on the hook. You know, unbelievable. And our things change. To say you know, Mark Weaver, every day is a school day. Always have eyes and ears open to learn more. Exactly, Mark. To be honest, you know, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, I remember being at Ray's only a few months ago, and Ray's a very successful carp angler, and you know, he uses all these Ronnie rigs and whatever. You know, he's nearly, you know, he's starting to get towards 80. He's about 70, 78, 79 years of age. And he uses all these rigs, and he'll tell you, you know, the best things he's ever, you know, if he'd have had those 40 years ago, he'd have emptied waters. You know, we really, you know, that's what Julian Doxey, I saw the air rig, ignored it there, thought it was impossible. Yeah, I mean, I didn't ignore it because the chap that told me either was telling me a joke or he said, no, it isn't. And I tried it. And the first time I tried it, well, you know, I couldn't believe it. You know, the first time I nearly lost the rod. You hadn't got a strike. There it was. Fantastic. Fantastic. There you go. Okay. What I'm going to say now, a little bit of a sales part. I'm going to show you Becky's film on our stuff. The Tattle Den. I've not got mine on tonight because I got it all mucky. But this one's a Nashi one. But can I just say, you know, I asked Becky to produce these things for the Tattle Den, the merchandise, and she did, and she's put some lovely stuff out. She's put a lot of time, she's put a lot of effort, and put a lot of money into it. and I don't know why. I really don't know why. You know, I wish we could sell. I wish we could sell more. I wish more people who are members of the group, we could just invest a bit of money and show the badge. That's here's Becky. And the way she gets them out, you take it from me, she's probably packing them that quick. John Ettledray quality gear, and it is. It really is quality gear. It's not cheap stuff by any means. It's not the cheapest, it's not the dearest, but it's certainly up there with the good products, and it's lovely. You know, there's a lot of people say they love the group and they like to watch their things. You know, hey, show the badge, show the Tattle Den badge. Let's spread the word. Okay, the question of the week this week, as normal, has been the last couple of weeks anyway. We've not only got the pudding mix by Willie Worms, which was something that I put together for Barbel, but at the end of the day is just as good for a number of species. That's for sure. If you read on the label how to do it. And put the attractant in there. Again, we talked about them earlier about attractants work. Yes, they do, and that attractant in there does really, really, really work. I mean, I get it loose and I get it in quantity as well, and put it in quite a lot of other things as well. But then now for the question, you know, KJM have come in and offered this incredible prize of 50 leads. 50 leads. And they're sending them out now, and this week the winner is the winner of the bag of pudding mix and the 50 leads. The winner is, let me just come back here, it's O'Corum Ross, and the chap is, he has asked, and I've put it because it's the pudding mix, do you pre-bait for other species like you do for barbel? And the way I another tip, to be honest, is, you know, a secret. A lot of fish I catch because of I do this, and that is baiting without any rods in. You know, just answer the question yourself. You know, what is the biggest turn off for fish in a swim? That's lines. And one of the problems is putting the lines in too quick with feed. It turns fish off. It can knock them off, especially if they're a bit finicky, the temperatures or whatever, and they don't want it. You know, you need an edge, and the edge is definitely feeding. And when I say feeding, my way of feeding is not putting a great big dollop of bait in and then waiting for 3 and 4 hours to put, or 2 hours or whatever, and then go on top of it. I don't. I just feed it nice and easy for a number of fish. You know, whatever the fish, putting bait in, getting them round, getting small fish round, this ain't just on the river, this is anything. I remember Adam Penning writing a lovely article saying that the amount of times he gets there and he feeds and he puts no lines in sometimes for most of the first day that he's there. And that is because, you know, you're frightening the fish straight off. And certainly, you know, one of the things about, you know, setting your bivvy up, don't set that up straight away, all the banging, knocking, you know, all of a sudden you've got a big tent in the area, then you're flinging out and you're putting your lines in. You know, many's the time people say, I only ever catch on the second or third day. It's because you frighten the fish that much. You know, it takes another day to repair the swim. Well, why damage it in the first place? You know, literally, you know, feed it. The more you can feed it, you know, I sit there and some people, oh, I can't, I haven't got the patience. You know, I just imagine in my mind, like when I'm barbel fishing, when I'm sitting there and I'm just feeding and I'm putting some boilies in, and then I put a little ball of pudding mix, boomph, and I think, oh my life, I bet they're now, I've been doing this for half an hour now, I bet there's 4 or 5 barbel and a couple of chub and another barbel coming in, you put another one in, and 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I put another ball in and another couple of boilies, and I'm thinking, oh God, you know, and sometimes I think, you know, yeah, I could go in now, but I'm gonna give them a bit more. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy thinking that's what's going on many's the time. As people that have fished with me over the years on guide days, when they think that I say very often the first fish can be a big fish, because what you've done is you've created that situation for the big fish to come and be eaten, and it's taken. I remember, you know, Trev West and Tony Miles years ago, that very often they'd feed to such a point, keep going to a peg and putting bread in and bread in. And very often they'd chuck the thing, wallop, the best fish in the swim. They'd got it because they got the confidence, and instead of the big fish hanging back, there was a point that the big fish, any time, you know, any bait went in, the big fish was at the front. The big fish, you know, the big fish was at the front. Anything that's coming in, eating. Anything that's coming in, eating. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't do that. So yes, that is the very basics of my fishing. The very basics of my fishing. Julian Dock said the deer and the rabbits. You know, the deer and the rabbits is something that, you know, that I invented to give the same scenario as what happens a lot of the time when you do this, is that, you know, the chap who's going to shoot, he's gone out to shoot deer, and as he's walking up the hill to get to where he knows the deer is, he's shooting rabbits. Bang, 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 bang. He gets to the top. Have a guess how many deer are there? None. Because he's been busy shooting rabbits. And the same with fishing. You can be busy catching small chub. You can be busy, you know, catching small fish when, you know, you're frightening the bigger fish off. And people, you know, I hear match anglers and say, you know, if you keep feeding them, you'll feed them off. You'll feed them off, and then you'll get the big fish. You don't feed them off at all. There's not enough feed to feed them off. What actually happens, if you do the feeding right, the big fish come in and clear them off. Because that's why when you have a number of fish, all of a sudden you start catching the small fish again. Now you're supposed to have fed them off. They become hungry again after an hour. No, what's actually happened is you've had a good number of, say, tench or barbel or whatever, and then they fade away. They become scared, and the small fish start eating again. That's the rabbits and the deer. And as Tim Thornton, deer and rabbits analogy appears to many species. It applies to all species. It literally does. You know, there's only a few species that I don't do it with. You know, and I've explained that with grayling. I don't do it with grayling. You know, if I'm on like a water where there's few grayling and there's not that much food, it's, you know, the upper reaches of a river, and it's, you know, sort of, and there's a big grayling and it's surrounded with a couple of smaller ones. You know, this big grayling might be 3.25 pound. The other ones might be 2 pound and 1 pound. You know, but they're smaller fish. He's the king of the pack. And I tell you something now, if you throw an handful in, then everybody can have a batch, including little trout and all that. But I tell you what, you put 2 maggots on a size 16 or a size 14, chuck it in, let it go in, and I tell you what, so many times I've had the big fish straight from the off, because the big fish is seen it go in, wallop, and he gets there before anybody. He's the bully of the batch. And the lady of the stream, no way. The bully of the stream, that's for sure. A big grayling. Anyway, okay. Number 2 is a question that I've been asked a number of times, and you know, it's worth answering because I don't think a lot of people appreciate is why. Richard Edmonds has asked the most impressive angler that I've ever seen, or the most impressive angler I've ever fished with. And I've said it before, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, and that was John Wilson. And as I've said before, John wasn't the best angler I saw with a rod in his hand. You know, the way he performed with a rod in his hand. He wasn't the most successful angler in that, you know, he caught the biggest fish of all fish or whatever. He caught big fish. He was very successful at. He could fish. handle a rod perfectly, good at trotting, good at fly fishing, good at lots and lots of things. But he wasn't the best at it. There was people better at, a lot of things than him. But overall, I think of all the people I've met and talked to, probably the two most knowledgeable anglers I've ever known is one is Keith Arthur and one is John Wilson. And they're the most knowledgeable about the sport, and especially in John Wilson's, John Wilson's mind was geared up, whether it be fauna, the fishing, the baits, the environment. He really was so knowledgeable, and that's why he gets the vote for me. He was. He really was. And if you were on a desert island and you hadn't got any gear at all and you needed a fish to eat, you'd want John Wilson with you, because he'd find a bait, he'd make a rod, he'd make a reel or whatever, and he'd catch the fish and then he'd cook it, and he'd probably look for a glass of wine with it as well, and he'd probably do that as well. So he was the number one. And he's going to take some replacing, that's for sure. He'll never be replaced, but somebody up to him, his standards, is going to be very hard to find. Ronnie Fern, what needs to be done? I'm only doing a few questions this week because I've been very busy getting stuff ready. I was down Thursday. I'm getting stuff ready to go to Scotland with Steve Sunday, so I'm really, really busy. So I've cut the questions down. I've only done, I think, 5. So Ronnie Fern, what needs to be done to get anglers back on the rivers? Well, to be honest, there's a few things. One, we need to clear up the pollution. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It's there all the time. And then we need to sort out the predation. That's Mark Rosen, didn't you and John Wilson go head-to-head at Evesham? No, I went head-to-head with Keith Arthur. But the predation needs to be sorted. But the other thing as well is to get people on the river. Even when you get the predation, if we ever get that right, even if we get the pollution right, you've still got to get people to come into what they expect from a river. You see, what the average angler now that fishes the commercials, if he has less than £20, if he has less than 50, sometimes less than 100, starts to moan. Oh, I'll tell you what, it ain't so clever today. I've only had £50. And you think, only £50? Well, I've said this before. I can honestly say, when people talk about £100, from the age of 11 when I started fishing to the age of, say, 15 or 16, I didn't have £100 in all those years. Never mind, I don't mean on a day. I mean, if you added all my little gudgeon and all my little roach and all my little perch and little bream and little tench and what, I did them all together, I bet I didn't have £100 in those 5 years. And here I am now catching big fish, etc., etc. And I just think that people that have fished commercials, if we're going to attract them to, say, well, I wouldn't mind to go on the river, they've got to be conditioned that you ain't going to go on a river and catch straight away. You ain't going to get £100. You need to learn the skills. You need to learn watercraft. You need to, and when I say watercraft, understanding the species, not as long as you throw an handful of pellet in and just put one in amongst it, and then you sort of, there you go, you got one. That ain't fishing, that's catching. And I do laugh when people say, we went and tried it at such and such a water, and you think, mate, if you'd have stuck dog poo on, you'd have had £50 there. They got no food to eat. It's the only anything that goes in the water, they hear plop, they eat. So, you've got to, the mind's got to be conditioned that, a good day on a river, if you're on the float, a good day's £10. A great day, £20. Well, brilliant. You see Dave Greatbatch, Tim Thornton has mentioned Dave Greatbatch. I was fishing with Dave when we were sort of 15, 16, 17 years, 18 years of age. And Dave, Dave was fine-tuning his skills as a float angler way back then, 50, 60 years ago. And so when he comes on the Facebook with his 50-pound and his 60-pounder fish, that's took a lifetime to get together. So, you need to condition people to say, it is enjoyable to catch 10-pounder fish, not a disaster, as some commercial anglers think. That's the difference. So even if you get it right, then you've got to train the angler's mind to what they expect from a river, and not expect to. Right, okay. Let me see. Chris Matthews. Chris, my mate in Cornwall, he's asked and said, if I had a year spare to go in after a record fish, what would I do? To be honest, I couldn't do it for a start because, I still write for the Angling Times, and, if I was after a record fish and I had a year to do it, I would have to go to a water that probably didn't have many fish, probably a big water, probably very difficult, probably fishing a water that the likes of Lee McManus fishes, very difficult waters, weeks and weeks and weeks without no fish, and then suddenly bang. Well, I can't afford to do that because I've got nothing to write about. I can't keep writing about, a blank. But the other thing is, and I'm not being flippant about it, Chris, and I think you'll probably know the answer. You've asked the question for other people to hear. And to be honest, I think I'm a true all-rounder. And I think I'm very impatient it's like the perch fishing, now I could go, but as soon as I come back from Scotland, I could get back on it and try and prove a point, try and find them again or whatever. No, I've caught enough, and I'm just starting. It's actually worked out well because I was just starting to get bored of catching the fish anyway. You know what I mean? So for me to fish for a record fish, for me to fish for one species all year would be impossible. It really would. I wouldn't enjoy it. I'm one of these that, I'm fishing for perch, and then I'm fishing for a pike, and then, and then I'm fishing a big water, then I'm fishing a small water, and then I'm after trout, and then I'm grayling fishing, and then and then I'm perch fishing on the lure or whatever. That ain't the way I'm going to catch a record, even on a record water. I suppose if somebody said, you could fish the likes of Chew, 3-4 days a week all year round, there'd be a fantastic chance. But one, nobody's going to have that chance. And two, I just get fed up. I get fed up of the place. I'd get fed up of the whole scenario. So there's no chance of me ever, I wouldn't say there's no chance of me never breaking a record. That's still something that I'd love to do, but it'll have to be more of a chance thing. As I fish very good waters. There's been waters that have held records, but I've not fished them enough to really bring the percentage on me. But no, I'd be bored, man. I couldn't do a year. No chance. Okay, we've got Steve Brotel, and this is the last question, and it's something that you have to make a decision. Sometimes in life you have to make the decision, and he's on about deep hooked fish. When you have a deep hooked fish, what do you do? Well, you can either prod around with a disgorger, forceps, or whatever. I'm talking about the likes of perch or roach or whatever. Me personally, as soon as I can't see the hook, I think to myself, well, hang on, it's not a stainless steel hook. It will rot. Whether it be barbed, he seems to worry that it's barbed or barbless. What I would do, I would say, right, I've sort of I've caught that. I'm just looking at Sean Bigford about orange fish. I'll have a word with him. I say to myself, well, I personally think it's going to rot. I'm going to, and there's more chance if I cut that line close on and I don't get pulling at it and pull it into its gut or whatever, and put it back. I think there's a better chance. Will it die? I can't tell you whether it's going to die or not. It's not done it the world of good to deep hook anything. You know, you shouldn't, you know, with a bit of luck, if your indication's right, you know, whether you be pike fishing or crucian fishing or whatever, if you got your indication set right, etc., then you shouldn't be deep hooking fish. But if you do, what I would do, Steve, I would cut it as close to the mouth as possible so it doesn't affect, you know, put the scissors in and chop it so it's not the piece of line sticking out, which would affect its feeding, and then I just let it go. As for pike, then I would, because I've done pike fishing many years, and I've hooked many hundreds, if not thousands, I don't know, I've unhooked a lot. If you deep hook a pike, and if you're using 2 treble hooks, then you can't leave it down. You can't leave it in its gut. You are pronouncing that to a slow death. You've got to do something about it. The only thing I can say to you, you know, the longer you've done it, you know, the more proficient you are again. And I'm not going to proceed the procedure. You need to go to a PAC and learn that. But again, really, you know, if you know, I fish Steve Greenaway's water regular for big pike, and I fished with Steve a few times over the years, and you know, Ray Cutler, Phil Goodsell, whoever, you know, many anglers I've fished with over the years, they will tell you when I have a pike run, you know, I eat it straight away. I imagine that it's a good pike. The bait I've got, it's got it in its mouth, and I eat it just the same as I'm fishing for roach. I don't like sort of run down the bank, then hold the line and feel it, and oof, has he got it? Has he got? Of course he's got it. The indicator's come off. He's got it. You know, what do you think he's done it? I think I'll pull the indicator off and then I'll pull it again. No, he's got it. Bump. He's got it. So I don't even do any pulling around at all. What I do is, if my indicator comes off, if there's nothing there, then I just got to catch back out. But if there's something there, I ain't deep hooked it. I rarely ever deep hook a fish. Rarely ever, because as soon as the indicator drops off, I walk up to it, I lift the rod, I close the bail arm, make sure everything's what's the name. One thing I don't do, and be very careful when you, is big reels sometimes are slow going around. So what you do is, if you clonk the bail arm and the line gets caught, the amount of times I've seen people clonk, and then all of a sudden the line's round the back of the split, and you think, oh my God, and then all of a sudden the fish is pulling the bloss there. All I do, nice and easy. Modern reels, you can knock the bail arm over without retrieving. Just knock the bail arm, make sure it's nice and clear, wind down straight away, hit into it. Very rarely, if ever, you will get a deep hook fish. Hope that's helped you. Think you need a big orange carp in your portfolio? Come Fish Angels, Derek. It's all right. I've always called him Bicton, and because I used to call him Sean Bicton for about 2 or 3 years, he now always calls me Derek, which is a bit of a laugh. Yeah, I will. I'll definitely this year. Some of those big orange ones you got up there, I would like one of those. You're right. Absolutely beautiful. There's some of them. I have to say it, and I don't mean it's an insult, Sean. It's almost like somebody's put an AI photo up. They're so incredible, some of those orange ones. I mean, I remember walking into Ray's one on one Monday night. We were having a drink, and he said to me, have you seen those orange things up at Angels Lake? I said, I know. Yeah, I got to have a word with Sean O'Glavin, but so yeah. Hopefully you'll see with one in the next few weeks. Our circle looks better to not deep in hooking a pike. I ain't sure about circle hooks. I'm not sure about the procedure with the circle hooks are brilliant with tarpon, permit, and whatever. They pick it up, or sharks, and they're running away. Then all of a sudden you wind down. You got him on. He's on. He's being pulled. The hook's in, and as it's round. But pike don't always do that. Pike will drop your indicator off, bump, and not move. What's happening to a circle hook now? What's happening now? You know, he's chugging the bait down. I can't get my head around how you're going to hook it on the circle hook. You know, I would say, me personally, I'd fancy to deep hook fish more. You know, unless it's a running fish, but not if, I mean, you know, the amount of times you get one, it's like almost a carp, one toner. Not a lot of times on pike, especially smaller pike. And, you know, you don't matter if they're big ones or small ones or what, you don't deep hook them. And the amount of times the indicator just beep, 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 and then the line's slack. You think, you know, for me, like Julian just said, you know, trebles for pike, it is for me. It's a pair of trebles. I don't have any problems. You know, I think all the fish I've had out of chew, just going back to the other day, I think all the fish I've had out of chew over the years, I've not done that well the last 4 or 5 times, but, you know, I did have quite a few, and I had quite a few big 20s up to over 30 pound out there. Never, ever had a problem at all. You know, just inside, which is great. I don't want it on the teeth, just on the outside like that, and they open the mouth, and, you know, it's, I don't deep hook them. And as I say, if you have a perch or a roach or whatever, don't stop prodding around with your scourgers and prodding down into the stomach and getting them to no. You know, if you do that and you put them in, I think personally they're going to die. You know, it's out of mind, you know, out of sight, out of mind. Me, I'd look at it and think, oh, can't see the hook. Right, snip, away, gone. Okay, right, let's have a look at Willie Worms, the winner of the Willie Worms Boilies. I got a freeze up on mine. There we go, we're back. I don't know if you had a freeze up on yours, but I had a freeze up on mine. The whole screen froze. And a guy that won a few years ago, Nick Firth, Yorkshireman up there, the centre pin man. And that is a lovely photo, you know. And it was just, for me, just captured the moment that you've got the fish, you've landed your beautiful common carp or your chub or your bobble or whatever, you rest it on your mat, the net's all folded over, and then you just put your hands together and you open it up, and then there you go, the fish, all of a sudden the secret's yours, you know. And that just shows how you're just opening the net and going, Jesus, look at that, it's bigger than I thought. Wow, what a fish. And that's why I gave him the prize. Well done, Nick. Your boilies are on the way, mate. Okay, and the Dinsmore, the last prize, the Dinsmore prize. The Dinsmore prize, I just love the photo. It's not a monster perch. It's a bonny perch. £2.6, if I remember rightly, by Damien Archer. And it was a tricky day, he said. And I think it's a tricky day because of the weather. Ain't we all had such tricky days, that's for sure. And just a great photo. Just a great photo. I really thought, yeah, the way he's dressed, the way he's holding the fish, the way he's looking at admiring, it's just, to me, a perfect perch photograph. You know, they only get bigger, they don't get any better than that. That's absolutely superb. Well done. And your bank sticks are on the way. Now, next week, I won't be here. I'll be stuck in Bonnie, Scotland, fishing, and you know, sort of, I know, wishing me well and whatever, but you know, but I think sometimes when I'm out fishing and I show you fishing, and you know, and sometimes when it's struggling or whatever, it's almost as though it's more upsetting for them than me, because you know, if I'm fishing a big loch next week, I'm gonna have a great time. Let's get it right. You know, let's get it right. The fish and a bonus that, you know, I'm going up there for fish. but let's get it right. You know, when people, oh, yeah, you know, I wish your tight lines, mate. I hope you have a bloody big one. And then when I come back, oh, well, there's another time. Oh, well, you know, feel sad for you. Don't feel sad for me. I'm having the time of my life. And when I'm up in Scotland, just enjoying the moment, you know, just whether, you know, Steve gets one, I get one. Great. If we get a big one, then great. But as I say, it's in the lap of the gods. We'll be trying our hardest, and sure enough, the next show I'll let you know how we get on. So, okay, I will see you in 2 weeks' time.